All right. Good morning, folks. Welcome back. You already know how we do here. You know how we do here. You know how we do here. Before we get started today, let's just check. Let me make sure we're good over there on Facebook. What's up? We are here. All right. Let me make sure. All right, we're good on Facebook. Checking LinkedIn now. How we doing LinkedIn? Getting a lot of love over on LinkedIn lately. So I appreciate you guys if you're tuning in from LinkedIn. Definitely appreciate y'all. Keep the love coming. Tap to join. Let me see if we're good on LinkedIn. Yeah, I gotta make sure the sound is good. All right, let me just share all this out real quick. Repost it. All right, good over on LinkedIn. Join in. You see the thumbnail. You see what we are discussing today. I have a couple strongly lettered comments that I'm gonna have to address because I finally got to watch a Colorado game. From start to finish this year, and I gave my thoughts, which got a couple of these prime sexuals out here a little agitated whenever someone tells you the truth. All of a sudden we're hating. The truth and hating is two different things, but we're gonna dive into that in a second. All right. Here we go. Good morning, folks. All right, as one Crookshank here, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. Back again today. We have a lot to get to today, and we're going to be discussing, like I just mentioned, the value of what a real fan can do, not necessarily for in just a football program, but what it can do for the individual, and the value of having people that support the community, that supports your particular team and all that stuff. So that's kind of give you a framework of what we're going to be discussing today. But before I get into it, I got to get through a couple announcements. I actually have a new announcement today. First things first. West Palm Beach. If you are in the West Palm Beach, Florida area, and you are interested in free boxing lessons, I will be starting that this weekend. I'm recording this November 20th, 2024. I'll be starting it November 23rd, a Saturday, and we're going to be going every 2 weeks from this Saturday. So the next one will be in December, and then every 2 weeks thereafter that. Like you see on the screen, it is completely free, and it is an activity that if you can it's an activity that if you can learn, if you decide to learn, your life will be incredibly enhanced. I've seen it myself. I spent 4 years as a boxing trainer, and I've seen people really, really develop in their overall life and what it is they want to do. So just hit the QR code that you see on the screen there and get some more information. As far as business owners, if you have not yet, please, this is incredible. I'm strongly advising you to take advantage of this now. Take advantage of this right now. All right. Go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. If you struggle with turnover, you're tired of constantly replacing your staff, you're tired of people coming into your business or coming into your establishment, the company that you are very, very passionate about, that you've put a lot of your life work in. If you're sick and tired of bringing people in that are just there for a check and they have yet to figure out, or you yourself have yet to figure out a lane or a strategy or something that's going to make it so they're very passionate about their job, you need to have this guide so you can start implementing strategies and implementing ways in which you can use innovative teamwork to reduce that turnover. All right. And that reducing that turnover can mean replacing an individual with someone that AI can do or something that technology can do. I've written 10 steps you can start applying today that's going to make it so you'll see immediate results, which is really, really, really important. It's getting to the things that's going to give you the immediate results, because business does not wait for anybody. It's like you either ready or you're not. And as of yesterday, literally as of yesterday, your boy is on Patreon, baby. Let's go. All right. So you'll see me read a lot of the content that I used to be putting on these social media apps are going to be now going on Patreon, because again, I am a person that needs to, I need to back up. I need to practice what I preach, per se, put my money where my mouth is. And I am always kind of advocating for people to remove themselves, especially business owners, remove yourself from paying so much attention to these vanity metrics that these free apps provide, and more so figure out ways in which you can use technology to make it so you're serving your paying customers more and serving your paying clients more. Your boy is on patreon.com now. There are 3 levels of membership. One is the preseason, one is the regular season, one is the postseason. All 3 of them are going to be incredibly, incredibly valuable to you if you like what you see, if you like the work I do, if you like the innovative teamwork approach towards creating opportunities in your business. If you like all of that, you're going to want to be a member of this crew. It literally got published less than 24 hours ago, and I was wondering when it was good. It's one of those things, if you've ever been on Patreon, it makes it so you have to get approved a certain amount of time, and it took a couple of days for me to get approved, but I'm officially here. Become a member today. All right, let's get into today's topic. We got quite a few things to discuss today. All right, first things first. I am recording this. This is a Wednesday. Like I said, Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. And every Wednesday, I provide what I call a wintrepreneur tip. If this term wintrepreneur is new to you, it's because you haven't been listening to me long enough, right? It's a term that I have coined, and eventually there will be like an actual book, and there's actually I have a keynote and a workshop dedicated to this idea of being a wintrepreneur. It's basically an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you have your entrepreneurial vision, you have the goals, you have the mission that you want for your business as an entrepreneur, and you've been blessed enough to align that vision with a job that's paying you every 2 weeks. All right, that's what I define as a wintrepreneur. The term is normally known in the entrepreneurial circles. It's known as a entrepreneur, but again, because of me, as one Crookshank, the creator of all of this, I got to add my own spin to things. I can't do things exactly the way other people got it. I never do anything that's going to be exactly the way somebody else got it. I'm going to learn from this one, take a little bit of that, and then add my own little flavor to it. So, I teach. So it's like I'm always telling the kids, you got to add a little magic to that essay, add a little magic to their responses to whatever writing assignment we may give them, right? So I took the term, I just added a W to entrepreneur to coin wintrepreneur, all right, which basically means the same thing, all right? So every single Wednesday, I give a tip on whether it's myself, I use myself as an example, or I'm using a situation in which I read about, or it's relatable to the topic or whatever it is. All right. So today's wintrepreneur tip is going to come from none other than the Bitter Rivals. For those of you who don't know, I'm a diehard, like a super, super Michigan fan. And today is going to be coming from the rival school, Ohio State. All right. Because we've been talking about real fans and real values. So as I was preparing for the show, I immediately thought, before I even get into that, what brought on today's episode is the fact that I finally watched a full Colorado game. All right. The last week, the Michigan Wolverines, we had our second bye week, and I got an opportunity to watch the Colorado Buffaloes taking on the Utah Utes, and I got an opportunity to watch the game from start to finish. And I put out a video right after explaining what I saw, what I actually witnessed, my years as a scout, the person that has grew up in this game, knows the game, knows exactly how the inner workings of the game work. I gave my thoughts on the game, and I got labeled a hater. I got labeled as someone that needs to apologize. I'm going to get to the angry comments later on in the show, but what I realized, given Colorado's new form success, or the success that they are having this season, is there's a lot of confusion. We'll say that's a nice way of saying it. There's a lot of confusion on what exactly a fan is, a real fan is. So today's Wintrepreneur tip is going to be based around something that a really well-known Ohio State fan does. And I had to, like I said, I researched this myself as I was prepping for the show this past weekend, and I was getting my ideas ready and stuff like that. So quick story, again, as a Michigan fan, there's several watch parties. I live out here in South Florida now. So being that we're in an area in which there's a lot of sports bars and stuff like that. There's Michigan bars, and then there's Ohio State bars and all that kind of stuff. Now, this was new to me. I had to actually discover this on my own. So there was a couple times, not a couple times, a couple of years ago. I think it was like 2 seasons ago or sometime last year. No, yeah, this was actually last year, early in the year, where I stopped at a sports bar that was in Boynton, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Brew's Room or something like that. And I remember stopping in the sports bar, and I'm watching some college football. And I remember it was Ohio State versus Rutgers. I didn't realize that they were on at the time, but I'm there. I'm getting my food. Again, they have great food. But I'm noticing all these Ohio State fans. I'm like, what the hell going on? I didn't have any of like my Michigan stuff on or anything like that. But I'm like, what the hell going on? Why am I in a place with so many Ohio State fans? And I realized that this was the place they actually hosted and Ohio State watch parties and all that. So it's a reason I've never actually been back to that place, but it got me thinking about how passionate they were. There's a super fan. His name is Big Nut. And one of the things that would happen, I remember watching this game, they were playing Rutgers, so they were blowing them out. And I remember every time Ohio State scored a touchdown, they would be giving out these Buckeye nuts to everyone that was at the bar. And I'm like, I'm not taking it. I'm good. I don't want it. But it brings me to the topic of today's Wintrepreneur tip is, when you have super fans, all right, certain super fans, and this is, again, I'm pointing this out because I'm pointing these things out because it's going to lead into a bigger topic, all right, when we're talking about support and when we're talking about exactly what programs and what real fans can do for a program, all right? So we're talking Ohio State. There's this super fan that you can look up right now. As you can see, it's Big Nut, who's been a fan of the team for years, has Ohio State in his blood, his family, everybody went to Ohio State and all that kind of stuff, right? So what he did for years, and I'm going to read the article directly off the screen in a second, but what he did for years is he would give out these Buckeyes or these like little nuts to fans and stuff like that. And then eventually he came up with what you just saw on the screen, which is a bourbon sauce that can actually be sold. Now, the fact that he came up with a product is great. What he's doing with the proceeds is something that's worth mentioning, because this is important for you guys to know when it comes to how you may put your products out there, how you may generate sales, and how you may, develop and find consumers and customers for your products. I'll read it to you. Scholarships. So, like I said, he started out by giving necklaces away, 50 to 100 per game, but the recipients insisted on paying for them. So they wanted to pay for them. They wanted to pay for the stuff that he was giving out for free because the product was that on point. When he wouldn't take cash, they gave him checks. He opened a special bank account, soon deciding to spend his earnings on scholarships. Okay, this is big. This is important for you guys to recognize, especially business owners tuning in. He decided to spend the earnings on scholarships. So these things that he's setting up and these checks that he's giving these scholarships. Let me move over so you guys can see my face. Right. He's creating a scholarship fund for everyone that goes to Ohio State. All right. Where was I? Then starting with one $500 scholarship in one school near their home in Fremont. The couple established a 501c3 in 2012 when they added a second scholarship. Plans are to expand to 14 high schools and 16 scholarships in 2024. Over the years, the couple have added sales from Big Nut popcorn, pickles, barbecue sauce available in local stores in Northwest in Northwest and Central goes to the scholarships. John says it's our way of paying for it, like the great Woody Hayes always talked about. That's what a real fan does. All right. That's what a real fan actually does. They come up with a product, they come up with some way, whatever proceeds, whatever benefits, whatever you may be thinking. And again, the reason I wanted to express that story is because it's a great conversation. It's a great way to think about how you as a business owner is going to establish yourself as a pillar, as a someone in the community that truly cares. That's very important. So because we're talking about Ohio State as a transition into what the subject is today, I'm going to play you a clip from a Michigan fan, to just show you a little bit about how much value a real fan actually brings to your program and what they can do. And then we'll dive more into today's topic.
Our hearts belong to Michigan football.
Coach Harbaugh signed it for me.
It was not a choice. It was Michigan or nothing. Don't wear green ever.
A love that turned into a livelihood.
We work at Will Call
in a little booth in the big house.
If they have any items on them that's prohibited, I will confiscate that.
We kind of warn the people before they get down to her, if you got anything on you, you better get rid of it right here. Because if she finds it on you, you may not get in the game.
The 4-hour trek to Ann Arbor every game day for 50 years.
I had open heart surgery. It's the only game I missed all these years.
Not about the paycheck.
That money we just use for Christmas.
Nor the star encounters.
Blake Corum's dad.
My son hollered down and told her, hey, Mark Consuelo's coming.
He didn't have anything on him. Unfortunately, I didn't get a check.
It's about the family in the football.
She's with me. Our son's with me. Her sister also works with us, so it's kind of like a family affair.
It's just a time that we get just to be together, and it's not really work.
Their family tree may be rooted in superstition.
And we got friends at Michigan State. That's not a problem.
Yep.
It's just on game day. Don't even talk to us. It's just in fun. Unless you're from Ohio, and it's like, no, not even in fun.
But on game day in the Clark household,
it's our life. I mean, that's all we know.
All is merry and maize.
This tree could be up until spring.
13 on your sides.
Yes. You already know I was not gonna just be sitting here talking positively about Ohio State without, bringing some positive Michigan news to you. I don't do that. I'm too much of a loyal, diehard fan of my Wolverines, even though we are having an incredibly tough year. All right. So anyway, when it comes to, and the reason I played that for you is because, again, it brings me into today and what we are going to be discussing. All right. Real fans and real value. All right. Now, since the world is talking about it, since they're having such a great year, and now, again, I will admit that the Colorado Buffaloes have exceeded what I expected that they would do. Granted, they're in a weaker conference. Granted, there's a lot. I haven't watched every single game. Granted, I'm going off the couple things I saw, again, because I'm normally watching the Michigan games on Saturday, but again, I watched the full game this past Saturday. They're clearly still have a lot of problems. They clearly are not as good as everyone is making them out to be. The fandom and the fair weather fans and the people that are talking as if they know anything about the game, it's important that I address them. It's important that I address them and give you guys some real quality criticism or quality, some quality critiques in terms of what you're actually dedicated to and who you're actually cheering for. All right. Because let's be 100% honest. The 95% of the people who are now quote unquote Colorado Buffalo fans are just fans of Coach Primetime Deion Sanders. All right. And I myself, again, I've been a huge fan of his. I grew up in the 90s and I watched him tear my Redskins apart for years. And then he came over and was a Redskin for a couple of years. And I was there, going to see him in Ashburn and during camp. And, they had the whole crowd. Everyone was Deion. We were so excited when he became a Redskin. So And I also I like to cheer for Florida State. So there's pieces of me that do want to see prime time do well. There's pieces of me that say, hey, I loved what he was all about when he was at Jackson State. I remember myself actually reposting a lot of what he said. I was motivated. I actually read in college. And I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But in college, I remember reading his book, Money, Power, and Sex, and I was moved by his story. I was moved by everything he lived through, because you would never know. You would never know when you look at him from the public perspective, all right? You would never know that someone is kind of hurting on the inside. You would think that everything is all good, all right? So when it comes to his success or his tenure so far at Colorado, I want to point out the fan that I think deserves the most credit. Now, if there's anything I really do love what he did, I love the fact that he's kept this lady very involved in the program, that he called her when they became bowl eligible, that he walked out with her on I think it was a spring game his first year, where he brought Miss Peggy out just yesterday or 2 days ago when he did his press conference. It was yesterday as of this recording. It was yesterday. She turned 100 years old. And he makes it so he uses his platform to introduce the Peggies of the world. All right. So I'm going to play you this clip, and then I'm going to react to how much it actually means and how heartfelt it actually is, so you guys really understand a real fan is going to stick to their team no matter what. And a real fan is not necessarily going to be so enthralled with an individual, not to say that they don't love an individual, not to say that they're not happy, that individuals don't make them happy. I'll tell you right now, myself as a Michigan fan, every time I see Blake Corum now, especially someone that came up in the DMV, someone that I saw as a 7th grade kid, I get incredibly excited because of how he helped my Michigan Wolverines capture that national title. But a real fan is an individual that really you can see is dedicated to the program regardless. As you just saw actually with Big Nut and with the couple that I just showed you, they're dedicated to the program no matter what. The people drive 4 hours. They drive 4 hours every game to get there. All right. So this was Coach Prime in the press conference yesterday when Miss Peggy turned 100 years old.
People from 2 different walks of life, 2 different generations, and bring them together as he has. She's always greeted me with love, compassion, support, stability, and hope. And I'm thankful to know her. I'm thankful that she can get to me anytime she desires to. And I'm thankful to be celebrating her 100th with her. She is the epitome of CU Buffs. She's the epitome of Buff Nation. She is the rock that holds us all together, and I'm thankful to know her. I really am. Thank you, Miss Peggy. You're so wonderful. Thank you. I love you to life.
Thank you.
Love you to life. Any questions for Miss Peggy?
Listen, all right, look, that was heartfelt. It was heartfelt because if you actually are someone that claims to be a Coach Primetime supporter, you have to really do all your research. You have to know everything he lived through. All right. This is, again, the guy who, like I mentioned, actually, let me show you the book now. If you ever read this, he has a couple of books, but I read this book in college. I actually read this book, and I remember doing an independent study with a teacher. His name is Professor Farran. And I remember showing him that this was the book that I was actually reading and I was getting conclusions from. You got to think I wanted to get into coaching. When I graduated, and his story really hit home. And I remember reading in this book, it says, great as prime. I'll show you again the title. It says Money, Power, and Sex. All right, Money, Power, and Sex. And we'll read it out loud. After scoring touchdowns and dancing in the end zone, after a stadium full of cheering fans had finally gone home, I was still empty inside. That's what he led in with the book. That's what he led. Actually, I remember my professor reading the back of it when I showed it to him, and he said he still felt empty. He has thousands of people cheering his name, thousands of fans that are cheering for him, thousands of people who claim to love him, thousands, literally famous. I mean, on every single commercial, you guys see him, you guys know he's about the charisma, all that stuff. This was him as a player, and he still felt empty inside. So when you see a clip like him and Peggy, or you see him bring out a Peggy during his press conference, and he says things like, these are two people from different walks of life that have been able to connect on something. That's when it's at its best. That's when you see this real value here, this real fans, real value. This is where you as a business owner needs to figure out, how do we tap into that? How do we align ourselves with that energy to where I'm creating Raven fans, not Ravens fans, not Baltimore Ravens fans. I'm talking about raving, like excited, happy, right? How do you create real fans that are going to make it so your business becomes more valuable and you grow as an owner? You grow as a person that's the face of it. You grow because you're meeting people that have a different, just a different perspective in general, right? So remember reading that book. I remember reading that book, and it was 2 years, I think it was like 2 years before Prime actually decided to take the job at Colorado. He was still at Jackson State. Here's what happened. He had just taken the job at Jackson State, because I remember he was coaching at a high school, and he decided to go to Jackson State. And he did, at the time, it was a big podcast named I Am Athlete podcast. And Brandon Marshall was I'm pretty sure they don't do it anymore. I think that podcast has fizzled out, which is a shame, because it was a great show that I enjoyed listening to. But him and the Pivot folks started to go at it, all sorts of drama when it comes to that. But anyway, I remember during that episode, I'm going to play the clip in a second, but I remember during that episode, they asked Prime what his lowest moment was, and he reaffirmed that there was a time in which he was suicidal. Take a listen.
We're ending Mental Health Awareness Month. Lowest moment of your life.
That's suicidal.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was suicidal. I was
That's deep.
everything, dog. I had everything. Every time you turn on the TV, I was on every commercial, top of my game, playing 2 sports. And I tried to take myself out in Cincinnati, Ohio. Basically because my babies had been taken from me. That was the only thing I felt like loved me at the time. Everybody else, they loved what I did, but they didn't love me because they didn't know me. Because I really wasn't Prime, I was Dion. They didn't know that cat. That's who Chad and all them know. They didn't know that cat. And my babies, I was going through a tremendous divorce, and I couldn't get them. Like, bring me my kids, have my aunt come with the kids, and that didn't go down. So I was up under extreme, I would call it stress, pressure, and I didn't no longer want to be here, man. And that was, God was calling me collect, and I wouldn't accept the charges. So I really had to I tried. I read. I think I was maybe in 3 or 4 that night. A couple stolen bases still. Next morning, got up, and it was the side of this highway, down this highway in Cincinnati, ran right off. I remember, because I don't lie. I don't lie for nobody. Never did. And this police came down to the bottom of this runoff, and he said, Deion Sanders, what happened? Did you run off the road? Did you lose control?
I mean, like I said, I read that first. I knew about that story when I read this book in college. All right. And exactly the way he said it is exactly the way it's written in the book. All right. Exactly. It's to a T. All right. You can go do the research yourself. And I bring that up because when you look at the success he's having now and the fans, the quote unquote real fans of Colorado, you got to understand it's not just about Prime. You are not doing him any favors by simply engaging in this form of idolatry and idolizing him to the point where you're not being critical and you're not giving constructive criticism, constructive critiques about what you actually see in the game. And that's the issue. That's the only problem. Like whenever I'm called a quote unquote Prime hater, or whenever I'm, faced with a conflict between a Colorado Buffs fan and something I may say publicly or some critique I may offer for the team, they may not be looking as good as they think they're, all that kind of stuff. The issue that continuously comes up is the fact that too often are you idolizing the one individual. And as you just saw, between what we just saw with the relationship that he has with Peggy and where he previously was, how low he actually was to the point where he tried to take his own life, you got to really ask yourself, how are you helping? How are you really helping the program if you really do want to show support? And you're not going to be helping by not being honest. All right, by not being honest. And this is what happened. So this is what actually took me to this place, because the more I see it, the more, whether it's the national media wanting to pay attention to this, or whether it's the, an aunt, that one of my aunts calls me. She's a big Colorado fan. My mom called me. In fact, my mom called me right after the game ended between Utah. And she's like, "You're telling me they're good," because again, I get it. Listen, he has great charisma. He's a fan favorite. If you don't really study the game the way I study the game, or if you didn't really read his book or know his story and know everything about him, if you didn't know at one point he was suicidal and really dig into all the things that he's about, you can just kind of be excited with surface level success. All right, I get all that. But the truth is, if you really do want to matter, if you really do want to be someone that's of value, then you're going to offer real critiques, and you're going to offer things that are going to be really useful to an individual. All right. So what happened Saturday was, if you don't know, I do a video every single day. I call it the Move Swiftly Thought, and I titled the Move Swiftly Thought. I made the subject of the Move Swiftly Thought about the success of the turnaround of the Colorado Buffs. Now, I can't play the full video for you because I guess it wouldn't. I was going to play the full video for you, but you can just go on YouTube now and look up. Move this real quick. You can go look up this title right here. Right now, it's going for me personally, it's going viral because it has a bunch of views on it. It has the most views of any recent video I've done, and that's saying a lot because I do a new video every day. But this one has had comments on it, and it's been getting a ton of views lately. It's been picking up a lot of steam. And I'll kind of give you just the Cliff Notes version of what I said, because it's laid out right here in the thumbnail, where I said basically the biggest difference in CU football is the fact that, number one, the Big 12 conference is just weak this year. Not to say that they're just bad football, not to say that they're FCS, all right? It's just that they're not as strong of a conference. The leader of the conference was BYU going into Saturday, and they got beat by a 3-and-whatever-it-was Kansas team, which tells me, again, the conference in Big 12 is not that strong of a conference. Again, that has nothing to do with Prime's ability to coach. That has nothing to do with him as an individual. That has nothing to do with him as a man. That has nothing to do with really anything about him individually. That's not his fault. It's not his fault that the conference is weak. I'm just pointing the things out. But here's where I want to get you guys to. And here's where now you gotta really humble yourself if you don't watch the game of football. Now, if you don't watch the game of football, you got to humble yourself. That game that we watch, the game that I watch, I can't say we watch, but that game I watch was more so the win. The win was more so because of the defensive ability, the defensive front seven, which are the linebackers and the D linemen more specifically. I'm not even putting the defensive backs in this category because the quarterback for Utah was incredibly weak. I think the defensive front seven that was able to nut up against the run, that was the reason that they won that game, and the reason that they were able to keep Utah from staying in the game. In fact, if you really watch it, there were three plays that made it feel like Utah had an actual chance. One was the interception that Shedeur threw on the first play of the game, and that Utah gets the ball inside the 10, and the defense holds them to a field goal. The second was when Shedeur fumbles the snap. He fumbles the snap, and again, same situation, and Utah gets held to a field goal. And the third was when Travis Hunter gave up a go route, and that kept Utah in the game later on in the third quarter. All right, let's show you a stat. This just in case you think I'm not playing, or just in case you guys need proof. Look at it right here. This was the first half stats. 4 of the touchdowns, 1, 2, 3, 4 of these touchdowns that Colorado scored. The score of the game was 49-27 or 26 or something like that. 4. That means they're set. So we'll do the math. 49 points. They put up 49 points, which means they scored 7 touchdowns. 4 of those 7 touchdowns were off big plays. So you take away the big play, and they're only at 21 points. And one of the touchdowns was actually it was like a late reverse to Travis Hunter, in which he had around the field, which again, you can't, that kind of constitutes as a big play. That would actually fit under the category of a big play, because it's just not something that you normally see. And that's what we mean when we say big play touchdown. These are not methodical, strategic drives in which they're getting downfield and they're beating teams or their offense is moving the ball in a strategic way. That's what big play touchdowns mean. All right, just so you guys know that. Let me remove this. Let me get back. And what I pointed out was the fact that it was the defense. It was the defense that made all the difference. And I'll get to the angry comments in a second, but I want to play you another clip. Because again, I'm giving, and this is stuff I actually said. This is why, to this day, I mean, it's mind-boggling. This is why it's necessary for us to have this conversation. It's because I went and I looked up the defensive coaches that Coach Prime hired. All right. And he was actually, I say critiqued. He was questioned. I'll say it was questionable. He was questioned by some reporter about the defensive staff and the people that he brought in the defensive unit and how they weren't actual coaches before. And this was the way he responded.
You know, some new members of your coaching staff, but several of them had not technically had that job title before.
Who is that?
Robert Livingston.
He's a pro. I think his pay grade, what he brought to the table, was above that job title.
That's true. But I guess my point is just from an experience standpoint of having done it before.
Of being a pro and a college coordinator, not only a pro football coach, a defensive back coach of the NFL. Think about who he's coaching in the NFL, to be able to control his room. Shoot, that's a no-brainer, man.
I think my question is it's not just him, right? Phil hadn't done that for technically yet either. How have you felt this?
Who?
Coach Lodeholt.
See, the thing about it, just because they don't have a title, that don't mean they wasn't the man.
I just meant from a title perspective.
I ain't with that. Okay. Because a lot of folks with titles in this room right now ain't doing their job. Somebody else is doing it. I just want you to know that in life now. So we do our homework and understand this guy may not have the title, but he did all the work. Even with Sapp ain't never been no darn coach. He got a gold jacket. That's just how life is. The title does not constitute job.
You went
Exactly. That's if you want to give Coach Prime credit for anything, give him credit for that. That deserves credit. That I will gladly clap for. That is the mentality that we need to be incorporating. Okay, as business owners, something like that is where we start to see real value, because he wasn't going off. It wasn't going off. Oh, because this person wasn't a defensive coordinator, because of Warren Sapp wasn't necessarily a coach. The guy's a gold jacket. The guy knows football, and these are the lessons that we can pull from the game, and that's how we create. I'll put it back on the screen here. That's how we create the value within our organization, when we create these fans, because we know that the folks that we are bringing in are very authentic, and it's not necessarily about some title or I'm going to give this person this position because I know they did this and this one said this about them, whatever it is. It's about what you're actually able to do and what the needs are of the organization. All right, so we'll look at it logically. Again, let's go back to the game, and let's go back to the thumbnail that got me a ton of backlash, which was the reason that the program. Let me move this here so you guys can see the thumbnail. I'm getting the hang of this, getting the hang of putting all this stuff out. So when I put this thumbnail out there, when I put the video out there, and I made the point that the reason that they're having so much more success this year than they did last year was right here, because that defense was better. And then you take into consideration what Coach Prime actually said in that press conference when he was pressed about, oh, well, these people that you brought in on the defensive side don't have experienced coaches. Then things start to make sense. All right. Then things start to make sense. And you realize it has very little. I'm going to show a lot of respect for Travis and Shador's talent, because they are very talented players. I will give them that. But the actual translating into wins, the D-line and the linebackers in the front seven and the way you see them boys nut up during, challenging situations in which they could have folded, when the team gets down and all that. Like last year, what I saw when the team goes down, they just giving up points. The biggest difference has been actually in that front seven and being able to keep them in the game to do their thing, to make it so it's an actual game. In my opinion, again, the offensive line in Colorado still has some flaws. There were several times in which Shador was running for his life, scrambling all over the place, and you get a different kind of D-line. They're not going to let him do that. So again, there's still a lot of things to clean up, but that's my take on it. That's the reason that it's important for me to bring this stuff up, is because you get a lot of people who might hear me say something publicly or might just look at a thumbnail and decide that they're going to tell me how to watch the game that I've been watching my entire life, and how Colorado's just Coach Dion deserves the Coach of the Year. Well, they're just going to go off what the national media and the national narrative is saying, and they're essentially hurting the game when you don't come with your facts. You don't listen to the people that actually know what they're talking about. So all that being said, let's get into some of these angry comments that I got when I put that video out. All right, so the first one, and these are people, again, I don't know who they are. Very rarely, every time I get one of these angry comments, very rarely do I actually see the person who made the comment. I very rarely do I actually see them have anything out there. They're just simply trolls that decide they have nothing better to do than to leave angry comments or leave comments on my stuff that don't even make any sense. All right, so let's get to the first one. First one. It says by, I guess, Michael, what's his name? Michael Maxwell 2231. He says that I hope in 2 years after Travis and Shador are balling out in the league, you will man up and apologize. All right, let's get to that one first. Let's talk about that one first, because the other one is just kind of a general stop hating, man. So we'll get to the Travis and Shador making it to the pros, and I'll officially close you out with that, because what's happening? All right, what's happening is right now, Travis and Shador, incredibly talented, great players, great human beings, great kids in general. I haven't met them personally, but you can tell just based on the way they've been interviewed and the way they have some class, they're good kids, good, solid kids, got a great mind behind them, got a great future. However, if we're talking about evaluating talent and evaluating a player, you're looking at the level of competition. All right. You have to look at the level of competition when you're evaluating players. These guys are playing. The two of them started out at an FCS program, come to the Pac-12, and now they're in the Big 12 now. Bottom line is they spent 2 years a year at FCS, and then they came to big time football. And now this individual, let me read it again, just so we're clear for context. I hope that in 2 years after Travis and Shador are balling out in the league, which means NFL, you will man up and apologize. When you're talking about the NFL, every last one of these dudes are great. This is the elite. This is the top percent. 1% is going to make it to the National Football League. All right. Which means the need for kids like Travis and Shador, the need for them to be humbled, the need for them to be focused, the need for them to constantly be thinking about how can I get better so I can maintain in the league, that drive, that hunger, that push, that eye of the tiger, that look, I ain't where I need to be at, that mentality needs to be in place, that mentality needs to be, they need to be covered into that mentality. All right, is what I'm basically saying. Instead, it should not be, oh, they're automatically going to be in the league balling out in a few years. They haven't proven that yet. They haven't proven that they are going to be worthy enough to play in the NFL. The only people that are saying this stuff are the people who are causing the problem because it takes away from their hunger. All right. There's a great scene in one of my favorite sports movies. It was Coach Carter. Coach Carter. There was a scene. If you guys seen it, just put it in the chat, and you may know where I'm going with this. But he basically was a college basketball coach in Richmond, California, rough part in Richmond, California, and they did a movie about him, and it was about how he came in, he cleaned up the area, the basketball team started doing well, all that jazz. Great story, right? So there was a scene in that movie in which one of the basketball players after their first game started talking about his point and rebound percentage, assist percentage. He said, I was like 30, I like 25, I was like 25 for 4 or something like that. He was basically talking about how many points and rebounds he got in all of his stats, right? And then Coach Carter came in and said, no, I counted 5 turnovers and 6 mistakes or something like that. And when it comes to evaluating players, as great as many times as the ESPN is going to play this highlight of Travis, going up and catching the ball, and him catching the tipped interception on the reverse, and as many times as the media is going to show him doing the Heisman and all that kind of stuff, I'm looking at the fact that he got burnt on a go route. I'm looking at the fact that Shador threw an interception. I'm looking at the fact that he fumbled a snap, not because I'm hating, but because they need to hear that so they continuously get better. That's what it's not that players make it to the league and they just don't pan out. It's that players get to the league, they get these contracts, they get drafted, and they're not being humbled during these years where they need to be developed. The media has taken over it, and they've turned it. They've decided they're not going to promote those things. They're not going to talk about those things. They're going to talk about the 1 or 2 plays that they made to feed their narrative. And what happens in the process is their development as players, it goes out the window. They're not being developed because they're not. And I'm not saying that this is happening with Travis and Shador. I'm saying that if they were to listen to the national narrative, if they listen to idiots, jackasses like this, who are going to tell me that in 2 years I need to apologize to them for calling out certain things that they did that could have cost their team the game. If they listen to nonsense like this, then they do not get better. So the challenge and the point of me bringing this on, just to kind of bring this thing full circle, is the fact that regardless of how good or the small things that may have happened, it's important that you are constantly get picky, get critical, do that. Don't do all of that. It's important. All right. Not to say you don't give any credit whatsoever, but it's also incredibly important that you get picky. You find something that you can evaluate, in whether we're talking football, whether we're talking business, whether we're talking your personal, your family life. Get very picky and critical and critique little things so people know, look, I'm not perfect. There's no human being that's perfect. And as you do that, you start to see guys develop into what it is they want to be, and their mindsets get developed in the process. That's the key. All right, that's the point. So again, I've spoken a lot. It's not a matter of, and this, let me put the subject back on the screen here. It's not a matter of, being a real fan. And I'll just close you out with this. Being a real fan is not just about idolizing an individual. We'll close you out with this concept. Being a real fan, say it again, nice and clear, so I'm on the record stating this. Being a real fan is not about idolizing an individual. All right. Being a real fan is about looking at things with the bigger picture in mind, seeing the whole picture, seeing everything going on, and then creating real value because you're being honest within your critiques of everything that you're seeing and using your common sense. That's when you create real value. If you spend too much time idolizing individuals, eventually these things will not end well at all for you. It's just the bottom line to it. It's just the way the business works. All right. So all that being said, looking forward to, again, do not forget, if you are tuning in first time, make sure you tap into the Patreon link. It is brand new. It is here. You guys go get your membership. and we'll be having I'll be posting more on that as things move forward, and I'll be back here on the live stream in 2 days on Friday. We'll be I'll be talking more football. I talk about football, but more specifically, be talking my high school, because we have a championship game. The high school, my alma mater, Good Counsel High School, we have our championship game against, again, no other than DeMatha. So have a huge rivalry game. So I'll be talking, Good Counsel football and all that stuff. So main website to check out to dive deeper into all my work, it's makeyourmove.com. It's makeyaMove.com. Also, business owners, if you have not yet, make sure you get that free guide. Make sure you get that free guide to get the 10 best ways to 10 strategies, 10 ways to use innovative teamwork to reduce the turnover in your business. Make sure you get that as well. And everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.